Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, March 14th, Monday, March 15th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys could join us this evening. I hope you're having a nice and relaxing Sunday. I, for one, have chosen to wear my pajamas today. So if you're listening right now, you're listening live on Spreaker.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, YouTube, SoundCloud, Deezer, Podcast Addict, as well as TuneIn Radio. On Saturday nights, you can also catch us on kpnl-db.com, and that's KPNL Radio. So tonight, I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight, we'll be talking to and getting to know Mr. Robert Lindsy Milne, and he is a psychic intuitive counselor, teacher, healer, and life coach. He is recognized across the continent as one of the most insightful psychic intuitive counselors of his time. At a very young age, Robert started working as a psychic intuitive, doing readings at the Cozy Tea Room in Toronto, and at the same time battling serious literacy issues. He managed to overcome his disabilities and traveled the world, giving insight with his psychic intuitive sessions to tens and thousands of people. Welcome, Robert, and thanks so much for coming and hanging out with us tonight.
Well, thank you, and it's great to be with you. I can hardly wait to talk to the people and talk with people. I'm excited.
Me too. So,
yes.
I know that you've done so much, and there's a couple different bio versions, and hippie psychic. Like, that to me is a very interesting or endearing term.
Well, I became a professional psychic when I was about 15 and a half years old. That's when I started. And by the way, I will turn 72 in July this year. So I've been doing this for my living for 56 years. And the reason I started working at the Cozy Tea Room at 15 and a half is because I was homeless, and I heard that if you were working at the Cozy Tea Room doing readings, you would, first of all, you'd get a sandwich, a cup of tea, some cookies, and you'd get paid at the end of the shift. And if you worked in the night or the evening shift, you'd get a hot meal, which I hadn't had for a while, cookies, tea, and again, you'd get paid at the end of the shift. And I applied there to be a reader, to be a psychic, got hired, and started that day. And I worked at the Cozy Tea Room until I was almost about 21 years old. That's how I started doing readings for my career. That's how it started.
So how did you learn to read tea leaves? Is this something that...
Well, I have to tell you the truth. I can't read tea leaves or cards, never could. I'm simply an intuitive. I follow my instincts. I'm a psychic. I pick up on energy. I've never used a medium unless I was forced to, like at the Cozy Tea Room. From a very early age, as long as I can remember, I've sensed, felt energy, feelings, vibrations from people, animals, plants. I sensed it. I didn't realize it was unusual to do that. And now, I was born in 1949. And when I was like 2, 3, 4 years old, so that's, like middle 1950s, the psychic realm or anything paranormal just wasn't even heard of, let alone talked about or thought about. But I was feeling things, and I was hearing things. And I remember one day coming home from school, I probably would have been in kindergarten, maybe grade 1. And I said to my mother, Grandma Harris died today. Well, actually, Grandma Harris was my great-grandmother. And I'd only seen her once in my life, and she lived in London, England, and we lived in Toronto. So there wasn't really much that she meant to me. I just had that sense. When I said Grandma Harris died today, my mother got really upset, scolded me, and most likely hit me for saying bad things. The next night at dinner, my mother and father, myself and my sister, we were sitting down to dinner. And my mother said, Grandma Harris died yesterday. And my dad, I thought, was going to get angry with my mother for saying bad things. And to my astonishment, they talked about it. But not about me saying it, about what my parents were feeling and going through. And I used to get into trouble for saying things, and I didn't understand. Uncle Harold, that wasn't Aunt Sally. Who was that? Well, that got me into trouble. So I would say things, see things. It was very clear to me, but it wasn't to others, and I often got into trouble for that.
That's so difficult. You would hope that you'd have a good support system there in your family, but I can understand, I'm originally from Arkansas, and that's in the Bible Belt area. And so talking about paranormal things that you've experienced or like you said, seeing these people and knowing that they've passed or whatnot, nobody likes to hear about it. Like, you're the crazy girl over there. Don't play with her. So I learned to keep it to myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I actually don't see spirits, or I sense, but I don't necessarily see. I sense and connect that way. I'm not a medium. I am a psychic intuitive. Although I have other skills, I'm not really a channeler. I don't think. So I learned to keep quiet, but I still often said things, and then when I was around 9 years old, my father took me to a Stanley Cup hockey game. And it was Toronto and Boston Bruins. The series was tied 1-1. And the first game in Toronto, so that we were at that one. And when at the end of the third period, the score was 1-1, and the game went into overtime. And when the players came on the ice for the first overtime period, and they were just kind of warming up and stretching, I knew number 17 with the Toronto Maple Leafs, his name was Gary Eman. I knew he was going to score. It was so real. It was almost as if he already had. But I was getting all fidgety and jumping, and because if he did, that would mean Toronto won the game, and they would go ahead in the series. I managed to contain myself, and just as the referee blew the whistle and the players went to the bench, the ones that weren't starting, and Gary Eman was not a starting player. So as the lights dimmed in Maple Leaf Gardens, it got quiet, and the only lights that were on were the lights that were on the ice. And just as the referee dropped the puck, I knew Gary Eman for sure was going to score, even though he wasn't on the ice. I jumped up, and I started yelling and screaming and cheering in this quiet building with 18,000 people. And they all turned and looked at me and my dad as I'm screaming, and the game had not even started. And my dad put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Sit down." And I did. The referee dropped the puck. The game started. A couple of minutes later, Gary Eman jumped over the boards. I think a guy named Red Kelly passed the puck to him, and he tipped the puck into the net, and Maple Leaf Gardens erupted. And people were yelling and screaming and cheering. Lights were flashing, cameras, and I just sat there looking around, and I realized other people didn't see what I see. And that was when I knew. And that changed my life. So that was my introduction into acknowledging that I am psychic or intuitive.
So as time went on, did you learn that you had more and more gifts? How did you learn to focus it or make it stronger to build on it?
I practiced. Now, I didn't quite realize what I was doing. I just knew it was different. And I knew that I was sensing things from other people, sensing things around people that didn't have the same, that didn't know stuff that I was sensing. And because I recognized that at such a young age, I learned to be diplomatic or a little bit more cautious. So if I saw someone that was going through a difficulty or an issue, I would come over and talk to them and give them information about it. And whether that would be kids that would be my age or older, or in fact even teachers. And there would be, I can think of a couple of times where I said something to a teacher about a relationship, and at recess she came over and asked me about it. I would have been 10, 11, something like that. So I started falling into doing readings and realizing what it was. And it also was a way I coped, because I had trouble reading and learning to read and write. And I was surviving by my wits, my instincts, my intuitions, even back then when I was a kid.
So when you would give advice to teachers and older folks, how'd they take it, you being a little kid?
Every now and again, like I said, there's on a couple of different occasions, I said something to one of my teachers, and it was exactly what they were going through. And she hesitantly came up to me and asked me about it, asked me some more. And now remember, I'm talking about, she's talking to a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old. And I wasn't as clear as I am right now, but I really sensed and knew what was happening. So some would listen. Some would just think I didn't pay attention, didn't take it seriously. That's pretty much how it happened. But after the time at Maple Leaf Gardens, I was very clear where I was going with my work. I also came from a really abusive background. And I had experienced physical abuse, emotional abuse. It was really quite traumatic. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I was an 8.5. The first time I left home, I ran away when I was 14, and I was a kid living in the suburbs, and I went into downtown Toronto, and I lived in an alleyway, and I survived on the street, using my intuition, my psychic abilities to survive. And in the time that I was homeless, I never once begged. I always got food. I was always ready to work for food. And I looked after or took care of people, fellow street people. And my psychic awareness, my psychic abilities were honed in survival. My very life was, was dependent upon using my instincts. Whenever I had a problem to face, and please understand, I'm a 70-year-old man describing what I was going through at 14. So I'm using words that I wouldn't have used 50 some odd years ago.
Right.
Okay, and I'm clearer in what I did 50 some odd years ago. In that time, I was always had the opportunity, if I had a problem, and kids on the street get into trouble, I always had the opportunity to use my instincts intuition or psychic ability to solve the problem, or an illegal or immoral way. Almost all the time I chose the psychic, intuitive way of doing it. And while there was no right or wrong decision, based on the decision I made, led me in the direction I went in. So it was like it was a testing time, a testing ground, the whole period. And I was on the street at 14 from early November till late April, and then the police brought me home. And then in the summer, when I turned 15, a couple of weeks later, I ran away again and went back downtown. And after that, I never lived full time with my family again. And once again, I was using my intuition and instincts to survive. So I was doing readings, I was being psychic, and I was using it to stay alive. And that's how I really, really developed it.
And I know a lot of these readings are personal, like we had discussed earlier. When you do a reading, it's really deep, really personal, so you don't generally do on-air readings. So we're gonna wait till the third hour to get to that. We're gonna warm up and feel the energy and get the bloods pumping. But yeah, that's pretty difficult moving out on your own like that at such a young age. I left home at 15, almost 16, and you do have to follow your gut. You do have to follow intuition.
Absolutely.
But these different readings, I know at the tea house, like people would come to you. But
let me tell you. Yes.
Go ahead.
I can tell you how I ended up at the tea room.
Okay.
If you would. Well,
yes.
I had heard. Now, in Canada, and this is really true, by the way, it was against the law to do psychic readings in Canada, and absolutely, and it was called the Witchcraft Act.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, it got repealed on July 1st, 2018. So up until July 1st, 2018, I spent my whole life, my whole career breaking the law. They did not have trouble collecting taxes for what I made, but it was against the law. Again, I could have been busted. And the law was written up in the late 1800s, and it was basically related to a strict religious group in that era, and witchcraft. That was what they said that being psychic was, or doing readings. And there were several sections, and it stated anyone who fraudulently, 1, told fortunes for consideration, that was mine, 2, used an occult or crafty science to accuse someone of a crime, to use an 3, to use an occult or crafty science to heal someone is punishable by a summary conviction of not more than $5,000 and not more than 1 year in jail.
Oh my goodness!
And that was on the and our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, he legalized in the same year. He legalized fortune telling and cannabis. I'm not sure if there's a correlation. Oh, good. That was supposed to be funny. I was waiting. That was ready for that. So
sorry about the delay. That was an awkward silence for a second.
Yeah, same date. It was repealed. So that happened. Actually, no. Telling fortunes, being psychic, was legalized on July the 1st, and cannabis was legalized. I think it was October 1st of same year.
Yes. What a good year.
Yeah, it was. It was. So I heard that if you worked at the Cozy Tea Room doing readings, and at the Cozy Tea Room, they because of the law, what they would do is that they would sell tea, a sandwich, and cookies for $2.50
Holy
as
shnikes.
yeah, well, we're talking 1965, 1966. So for $2.50, you would get your tea, you'd get a cup of tea and a sandwich and cookies, a tea leaf reading, and a card reading. And I heard that if you worked there, you would get fed and you would get paid. And I applied on January 17th that year. And I phoned and I told the woman, Mrs. Cox, that I'm psychic and I can do readings. And, I don't think she thought I was realized I was as young as I was. But I did a reading for her. And I just did my regular reading. But what I did, because you had to do you had to read tea leaves. So I picked the teacup out, and I held it right in front of me, and I would look into the cup and then look up at Mrs. Cox or the person I was doing a reading for, and then I would just tune into them psychically. That's how I would do the tea leaves. And the way I would do cards, and it was only required you do playing cards, I would just put the cards on the table, and I was a flamboyant kid, and I did know how to speak. So I could tell a story about the cards yet and still be psychic and give psychic information at the same time, which is what I did. When I was at the tea room, and that first day, she hired me, Mrs. Cox did, and I worked the afternoon shift, and I got my own sandwich and a cup of tea and cookies. And then I worked the evening shift, and I did get a hot dinner and tea, and then I got paid. And that night I had a place to sleep. I had a place. And the next day I had a job to go to. And I worked at the Cozy Tea Room until I was around 21 years old. And some days, some weeks, I worked 5 days, sometimes 6, sometimes even 7. And at that tea room, I would see anywhere from 10 to 30 people a day in, day out, day in and day out. It was a magnificent training program.
That's very funny that you did your whole presentation with the cup and everything. Very convincing. It's so cool that
Yes.
you just knew to do that in order to get the job, just using your psychic gifts and putting on this presentation. I could see it in my head.
Yeah, and I was a good speaker, and after a while, I really didn't pay very much attention to the teacup. I would hold it, it would be a perfunctory gesture. I would hold it, but everybody knew I wasn't reading the tea leaves. And after a while, and I was, here I am like 15, 16, 18, 20, 21, doing readings for people that are 70 and 60 and 50 and in every age. And they kind of caught on that I wasn't doing tea leaf readings, but they knew I was being psychic.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yes, it was an incredible training program.
Are there some readings that really stood out to you during this time that you could share with us?
So from 56 years ago, there's a couple.
I mean, there's things that stick with you, that
Sure.
are...
All right. So besides now in the tea room there was a sign. It used to say all readings are done for entertainment purposes, because they were doing the CYA, so they wouldn't get busted. But the idea when going into the tea room is that for the tea room side is that of course tea leaf reading and card reading. And you pay for the tea and sandwich. But if you want a little bit extra, for another $1, you could get your palm read, or you could have a crystal ball reading, or you could have a tarot reading, or you could have a complete reading. And a complete reading is a little bit of all of it, and each one was $1. So the waitress would always try to get people to buy the extra readings, the extra ones. And there was one that they used to do, and I've never heard of it before that time and after that time. They used to do an egg white reading. They would take a glass of warm water and throw egg white in it, and it looked like somebody barfed in the glass, and then you'd have to read that for the person. So, and in those days, the tea room would split. If it was a palm reading or the dollar, the reader would get 50 cents and the tea room would get 50 cents. And we didn't have anything to do with the selling of the readings. That was what the waitress did downstairs. Once again, I never learned how to read tarot cards or crystal ball. But I remember I'd been at the tea room for a few weeks, and I was a bit of a sensation because I was such a kid. People came to me as a lark just to see. And this man came to me. He was from, he was a man of African origin, literally from Africa. And he came in, did his reading, his cards and the crystal ball, and he had a chit for a piece of paper for, to have a crystal ball reading. And I'd never even seen a crystal ball. But there was this round glass thing in the room I was in. So I thought, well, maybe that's it. And I put it down on the table, and I'm thinking, now, how am I going to do this? And I looked at the crystal ball, and I looked at it, and then I looked up at the guy and said, oh, I see something. I can't believe it. And when I described it, he said I'd seen the shape of his country, and I drew it on a piece of paper, and I'd seen it, and I was more surprised that I saw something than he did.
Right? I see something.
Wow. Yeah.
It really worked.
Yeah. So then there was another time. Now remember, like, I'm 15, 16, 17 years old, hippie, hair, like down to my shoulders. Didn't have any shoes most of the time. So here I am doing a reading for this lovely old woman. Maybe she was 50 then, but to me she could have been 100. Maybe she was much older. Because she was really wrinkly. So I did a reading, and anyway, as I'm doing her reading, I say to her, I see this gentleman coming into your life. At that point, she cut me off. What I was going to say to her was, I see this gentleman coming into your life who will become a friend. If I would have been doing it today, I would say a companion. I would have been smoother. Who will be like a friend, and you'll be close, and you'll be friendly for the rest of your life. I say to her, I see a gentleman coming into your life. And she looked at me and she said, well, it's not going to do him any good now. And I just was on the floor. No, that wasn't funny?
No, it was. My camera's on, but you can't see me. I'm sorry. Okay. No, but she's saying, like, she's past that. She's over men. She doesn't really want one.
So that was it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Remember, I was 16, 17, but I remember that. And then there was another time I was doing a reading for a lady, and I said, you must be careful. That I see you having a fall. Oh, by the way, the cozy tea room was a dump, and It really was, and the chairs and stuff were rickety. And anyway, I said to her, you must be careful. You should have your cane. I could see you having a fall." And just as I said that, and she looked up at me, her chair broke and she fell.
Oh no.
So there's some of the remembrances of that I had then.
Well, hopefully she was okay.
Wasn't serious.
That is so funny. Be
It wasn't
careful.
a serious fall.
That is good.
Yeah. So I worked at the Cozy Tea Room several days a week till I was about 21, and I realized that that isn't what I had in mind for myself working there, doing that and working for somebody else. That's just not what I had in mind for me. So, and I used to get fired a lot, or I would quit simply because, well, when I was a kid, and I noticed something at the tea room that has affected me all my life, and I also noticed it affects most people like me that do our kind of work. The tea room charged $2.50 for a reading.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
well, actually, it was $2.50 for a cup of tea and the sandwiches. The tea room got $1.50, and the reader got $1, and that made me crazy because at a really young age, I realized that they were making more money from people like me than what we were making.
Yeah.
And I saw that as grossly unfair and became quite resentful. In those days, the people that were at the Cozy or anybody, this was before anyone went on radio or TV. This was before it was hardly spoken of. And at best, you would know of somebody that, down the street that did tea leaf readings on her kitchen table. And that was the best that most people could ever be or do. And then at the Cozy, people made some money. But I was struck by how old they all were. I was struck by how tired they all were. And I was struck by how drained and how poor they all were. And that bothered me immensely. And it's something that I've done my best to, well, one, I thought I'd never be like that. But I've done my best to share with people in my field ways of doing better. That's been one of my really big interests. So
Well, yeah, and working there and feeling like you're being taken advantage of, which you were, like, to me, that's backwards. You should be getting the $1.50. They should be getting the $1.
I thought Mrs. Cox didn't, but I did.
Right?
Now, after a short time, it was kind of a novelty to go to see the hippie reader named Bob Milne. Bob Milne, that was a big deal to see this kid, and I got popular quickly. But as I continued there, and I grew and I got better and better and better, people were not coming to see me for the novelty. They were coming to see me because I was doing good readings. And there were 4 or 5 other people that were there. Now, in the early days, I was not the star. There was another guy that was a real big star. But after a time, I just realized that I just didn't want to do this anymore. I decided that I had to do it differently, or I wasn't going to do readings for my career. I just wasn't going to do it.
Well, having that resentment, and trying to do good work, it doesn't mesh well.
Oh, it was only towards the owner, and when I tune in and do readings, I'm closed off to everything around me, and I'm focused in on the person in front of me. And at this stage, and it's been a long time, I don't really have a personal opinion about how somebody conducts their life or what they do or how their life goes. I really have that type of acceptance, and it was at a pretty young age as well. Mm-hmm. And I was able to block out the resentments because I loved doing readings so much, and there was no other way to do it.
So when you
Yes.
were finally able to break away and start to do your own thing, did you take some of the other psychic readers with you? Did you guys start your own little unit there? What did you do?
Well, so in my life, I'm neither a leader nor a follower. I just simply do my work, my skills, and that's what I've been dedicated to do. So at the time, when I was near at the end at working at the Cozy Tea Room, I was living at this hotel. It was a flea bag hotel. It was called Larry's Hideaway. Seriously, but it was at first it was a strip bar too, and then it became a rock bar, and then it became a punk bar. But I was gone way before it was punk. So when I quit at the tea room, and when I was at the tea room, I was also letting people know outside the tea room I was doing readings as well. And when I left, I was living at the hotel, and I gave myself a $5, like a $4 raise up to $5 for readings. And it only took about 2 weeks before, to fall behind in my rent. And I wasn't doing that well. And an opening became available at the front desk at night. And I went to the owner and I said to him, I'd like to do that job, but would you consider I can do it in exchange for room and board rather than you pay me? And he agreed. And I started working there at night, and 4 nights a week at the front desk. And by about 1 o'clock in the morning, the place would be quiet and shut down. And that was when I had the opportunity to start reading and learning to read books and learning to write. That's when I learned how to do that. I had that opportunity when everything got quiet at night. So 4 or 5 hours every night. And that's where I learned how to read. That's how I taught myself.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Proud of you.
Thank you. And also, the hotel specialized in ladies of the evening, their clients. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Ladies of the evening, their clients, their boyfriends. Then there was another group of people that lived there, and they were they were single working men, and they would work on a construction job or something like that. And then there was another group of people that the professionals, the female and their boyfriends would live there as well. So when it was a time where a lot of people would be asleep, and that was when I had time to learn. And also, I also used my intuitions during those days to protect the women that were doing their trade at the hotel. And many a night, I dragged a young woman out of a room where she was being abused or being hurt. So I looked after the street people too when I was at Larry's Hideaway, and I was there for about 4 years. And when I left there, I was literate. I could read and recite Shakespeare and stuff like that by that time. So, And I was always doing readings, and everybody knew that I was a psychic, and instead of my nickname at the hotel is they called me psychic. So,
Psychic? That was your name?
yep, that's what they called me. I didn't give it to myself. They just called me that. The people around, they would over. It was, yeah. So that was another very, again, interesting time using my intuitions and skills to protect both myself and people around me as well.
Yeah, would you find yourself at a certain place when you really needed to be there? Like you said, there was women that would be being abused and you'd go in and help them out or whatnot. You just found yourself at this certain place at this certain time that matched up perfectly.
Or I'd hear them screaming because, or the phone would get knocked over or something. But yes, often that would happen. I would just know, and I would also know by, I would tell by the energy of the client that she had, the customer that she had. But once again, that was a really long time ago. So that's where, and when I wasn't working at the tea room, at the hotel at night, I would have other day gigs where I would go to, say, a hair salon, and I would do readings. Or there was this one folk bar, a folk house. It was called Edgerton's, right near the university, and I used to do beer foam readings there for people.
Wow!
I wasn't reading the beer foam. I was doing readings, right? But I would get $5 and I would, and a beer and I do 5, 6, 7, 8 readings in that night, and I got the beer and you got the money too. So that was also, so I did, so everywhere I went, everywhere I was going, I was always doing readings, just all the time. And when I was around 21, when I left the tea room, I got to a point at that stage where I had to make a decision. Is this going to be my life's purpose, my life career, or am I going to do something different? Because and it had to, and I had to make, I decided I had to make that decision. So I had heard when a young man becomes a priest, he makes a vow to say a mass every day of his life. And I thought that if this was going to be my calling, my purpose, what I was going to do, I decided that I made a vow that I would do at least one psychic reading every day of my life or practice. And I managed to make it about 30 years without missing a day of doing a reading or practicing. And after about 30 years, I took a day off because I wanted to know what it felt like to not practice.
Jeez, man, come on. You got to take care of yourself too.
well, it was only, I would work and then have a day of practice. Now that day of practice would be like a half an hour. But it was always just to keep sharp. It was always the way I processed information when I had the time off. And I always, and if on that day off that I would, instead of practicing, if somebody called, even though I was really busy and booked up way in advance, if somebody called on a day of practice, I'd say, why don't you come in now? And I would do a reading for them because it's always better to do it than practice it.
For sure.
So that was part of the dedication I've had towards this work.
So do you think we're all born with gifts? Because I know, like I was talking about the Bible Belt, and up there in Canada, I had no idea about that law. That really blows my mind. And people think of it as evil. I think it's a God-given gift. Like, God gave you this gift for a reason, and I think it is to help others. And it's awesome how not only are you doing readings for random people, but you're also helping them out in their personal daily lives. But But yeah, people do think of it as that. What are your thoughts on people's outlook on being psychic? Like, can anybody be psychic?
Almost. Almost anybody can be psychic. Excuse me. Almost everybody is psychic. Now, being psychic is different than being spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can be psychic and not spiritual. Spiritual in the traditional way that being spiritual means being good. That's another subject about that. But that's the assumption, spiritual being good. So that's not necessarily being psychic. Now, a lot of people who are spiritual are intuitive and psychic. Being psychic, being intuitive, is a natural instinct that almost all humans have and just about all mammals have. Mm-hmm. It is our survival instincts. Has there ever been a time, Tessa, that you were just sitting somewhere and you look up and there was someone looking at you? Or,
oh, yeah.
Okay, that is the very first beginnings of being psychic. That's the very first one. That is our survival instincts. And just about every human has those senses. So if we took a bell-shaped curve and we took everyone on the planet and put them on that bell-shaped curve, at one end of the bell-shaped curve, there would be one person that absolutely does not sense anything. And then at the other end of the bell-shaped curve, there is one person that is absolutely 100% totally in tune. Well, I wouldn't want to be in that place. But that's the extreme. And the rest of us fit somewhere in between. Children often sense and feel. But as they get older, it's taught out of them. Mm-hmm. And you know, we were taught to ignore those and concentrate on other things. I just had a perceptual problem that I couldn't learn to read in those days. I couldn't concentrate that way. So what I did is developed my instincts, intuition. And I developed it. So being psychic isn't necessarily being spiritual, just about everybody can do it. Not everybody is spirit, and so that's pretty much the case. It's what we all feel, almost. If you want to take it and develop it, just about anybody can do that as well too. So that's how I see it.
That's very cool.
I agree. You can. Oh, okay. I was going to say you can debate with me if you want, but you know.
No, I agree. I think we all have that gift within us, and like you said, it starts with your intuition. Right. It's kind of like a survival instinct, feeling somebody watching you, looking at you, whatnot,
yes.
And picking up on messages. And I don't know, it's kind of confusing because a lot of times when someone's talking to me telepathically or a spirit talking to me, it comes through as my voice. And so I'm just like, okay, I know that's not me because you could tell by the inflection or by the feeling that comes through in it, basically who it is. As far as getting messages for people, I don't know. I don't generally just go up to somebody and tell them something, but it's funny how people come up to me and just start telling me these things that they wouldn't tell anybody else.
Sure.
And so that makes it easier. But do you find that when you go out in public, you pick up on energies like you were talking about going to this hockey game? I could just imagine all the energy in that freaking arena. It would kind of make me want to jump out of my skin, you know?
Well, for me, at that time, those energies were normal because I was always there. So I was just being me, I was just being me. So I really didn't consciously know about those things. It was just the way I am, or the way I was, or the way I was being. As I got older, I noticed that I sometimes did get affected by energies. Mm-hmm. Now, over my 56-year career, a big part of it has been performing on radio and TV shows in mainstream media. I was the first traveling performing psychic in Canada. I was one of the early ones in North America, and it was nobody was doing it. Nobody did these things at that time. So it was quite different. So that was a big part of my work as things went on, as being a performer, traveling, and then doing readings also. So I've always done a lot of readings. And about 8 or 9 years ago, I got to a point where I just didn't like doing shows and doing readings on the air anymore. And I just decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. And there was a really freeing sensation. And I decided that I would just be kind of like like an old-fashioned, professional psychic, just working from home, doing readings. And I slowed down the readings, and I'm only doing 500-600 readings a year up until recently, because I'd really slowed down. But since I started doing shows again, I'm doing a bit more readings, which is really wonderful. It's quite exciting.
I bet, getting back into the old groove. But it's good to take some time off and to get some rest. And I don't know, I really love the idea of walking around barefoot, because do you feel like that kept you grounded?
Or rebellious. That was the hippie era. So people did those kinds of things then. It wasn't unusual, for kids to walk around in bare feet. Adults didn't do it, but a lot of kids did. So I hadn't thought about that too much, actually. And then, it got cold, I put shoes on. It wasn't like it wasn't like I did it in the wintertime too. It was just a thing that kids did then, I think. Yeah.
You couldn't keep shoes on me till I stepped on, I think it was a Russian thistle, went into my foot. And then after that, I'd either wear shoes or I was really careful where I walked. And then clothes too. But then after moving to the city, you had to keep your clothes on.
So
I don't want to wear them. I was born naked. Let me be.
At the risk of being forward, in Canada, it's legal for women to go topless, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yep. You're legal to smoke dope, and women can walk around topless.
Sounds like a
wild place, huh?
Heaven or Nirvana or some euphoric place.
I haven't. And that law's been in effect for several years. I haven't seen anybody any women walk around topless.
Yeah, I think we have that law here too. Marijuana is legal. You can grow it. You can smoke it. You can't smoke it in public, but people still do. And I think we have the topless thing too, so I'm going to have to Google that. But on that note, we're going to go to our first musical break, and we have King Cinnamon from Biafra, Nigeria, and he's going to be singing Al Imo Elderella, as well as Fantastic. And then we have Hosni Bronx, who hails from Jamaica, but he also lives occasionally in the Bronx of New York, and he's actually got members from Bob Marley and the Wailers in his band, and he's going to be singing Dance as a Lion and Free Child. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
We swap on the beat.
Can you get a chineke makwana limo bundenje mono? Can you get onye wuwa imakwana limo bundenje mono? Alimo, Alime Gerelo, Alimo, Alime Gerelo, Alimo State, Alime Gerelo, Alimo, Alime Gerelo, Alimo State, Alime Gerelo, Alimo, Alime Gerelo. Democracy democracy emeriela ndị ime emeriela alimo alime derelo alime derelo alimo state alime derelo alime derelo democracy emeriela ndị ime emeriela ebere mara mma ọbana mara mma Yes, lady, madam. Her excellency. Emeka idio hamma. Emeka idio hamma. Omenka unanya idio hamma. Omenka unanya wa. Emeka. Make modima. Emeka. Make modima. Emeka puta no boy. Oh yeah. Umu wa wulenu. Emeka puta no boy. Welcome madima. Emeka make him modima Emeka make him modima ndem jejemba nwan jejemba ndem jemano deputy governor Imo State Chilike Gerard Ronna Karaka Wokomadima Porabo deputy governor Imo State Deregema Alukuta Deregema Alimo State Deregema Ala Nigeria Maragema Onye Jemano Standing Wamuche Karaka Onye Babamba President Good Life Foundation Shirike President General Senate Group of Companies President General Financial Matter Karaka Alo were Deregema Alambise Deregema Alimo State Deregema Ala Nigeria Maragema Onye Jemano Franklin Neji Shirike Mebe Arabido Hotels ABC Transport Karaka Alo were Deregema Alambise Deregema Alimo State Deregema Ala Nigeria Maragema Uchonya go chande Honorable Mokomadima Onye hụrụ na keleli ya o Ma wugi ye Gina ndotu gi o Ma wunule Njiji gari jinala Imo State yo Ma wugi ye Gina ndotu gi o Ma wunule Miri gari zonala Imo State yo Alo were Deregema Alo were Deregema Alimo State Deregema Ala Nigeria Maragema The German Orange Drugs Limited Jisa Anthony Ifeanyi Chukwundu Business na Ishirike Ikenga Ndichele Pride of his people Most outstanding one Okoma Marama Iborabo Alo were Deregema Alijato Deregema Alimo State Deregema Ala Nigeria Maragema Honorable Jogwagu Shirike Honorable Binna Shirike Jere Labosa Shirike Tochukwu Kereke Shirike Okahube Shirike Injina Benina Shirike Onyoma na construction Wokomadima Ikaraka Onye Shiwore Hebowarani Dejemu Imarama Wokomande Jemba Wokomadima Ikaraka Wiz Popule Ibo Felamo Onyoma na Pito Akana Kumpa Ikaraka Eziwa Mama Stanley Duriwa Wokome Jemba CEO Elizabeth Ventures Ikaraka Democracy Emeriela Ndime Emeriela Democracy Emeriela Ndime Emeriela Alime Derelo Thank God I'm from Imo State Emeka has come to rejuvenate Imo State, make you jubilate, make you celebrate Emeka Shikwen be say this one no be say them say Emeka has come to rejuvenate Imo State, celebrate, make you jubilate Ala mekele His Excellency Achikudenwa Mekele kwa His Excellency Dr. Hakim Yemaka Right Honorable BDK Mekele kwa Right Honorable Jones Oyereri ana m ekele sinetọ onye bụ chi Mr. Empowerment, na-ekelekwa Right Honorable Emeka Chinedu. Ụmụ ọmụ Imo lọwali bịa mezie n'ala Imo. Ala Imo adịla mma.
Cliffito.
Why Babylon, you
We swap on the beat.
She like my water bam bam. King Cinnamon. Oh shit, baddest. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Know your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Know your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Put your brother, baby, gather something. Come on closer, baby, gather 19. I know you better, but I am the king. Your backside bigger than Bombay. Baby girl, broncotum. I like the way you want your broncotum. Baby girl, broncotum. I like the way you want your broncotum. Jamaica, Ghana. Shout out to the ladies in Asia, Nigeria, South Africa. Say me love you. Please me, baby. Yeah. Turn up from you. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Know your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Know your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Give me love. Me want you, me love you. Give me love. Oh, give me love. Hey, please me, baby. Yeah, turn up from you. Yeah, take your bam bam anywhere you day. Know your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Shake your bam bam anywhere you day. Know your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic.
We swap on the mix. Lift it all.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for tuning in tonight to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Robert Lindsy Milne, and it's been interesting learning about you, and I'm sorry if anybody feels like we're going too slow. Like, I just want to hear it all and how you got to where you're at today. And you said on the break, if ever there was a time to get a reading from you, it would be today. What makes you feel like that's so?
Well, one, because I've been doing it for 56 years. Okay. And there's never been a period in my life where I haven't been doing it. But the big thing is I'm seeing things on levels I never knew existed. I'm seeing broader than I've ever seen before. And I'm doing things that in my work that I'm really excited about. For example, when I do readings, I often see the person's life from conception to completion. Now, I don't see the act.
Okay, I was about to say,
no, I don't see that.
Come on, Bobby boy. Tell us what
That's
you
right.
saw.
Right. Well, I just actually sense the energy, and all the way to completion. And that often happens. So when I'm doing a reading for someone, and say they've been going through a difficult time, what I do is move forward into the future, say like when they're 80, and I look back through their eyes and tell them how they see the way they got through it. And so knowing at 80, knowing at, say, 40, that how you see things about your life and the way you feel at 80 tells you something very important. It tells you you made it. That's what it does. It tells you that. Now, I wouldn't say that shit to somebody if it weren't true. So I wouldn't say, oh, you're going to make it, and they don't. And I know that they're not. I know that's not the way I do it. So when I do that, and I do it, why I wouldn't do it that way, or why I wouldn't fake it, is because at this time in my life, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to fake it. Like, it would be so damaging to my reputation. You know, what I've been committed to my whole life. So I do things that are real. I don't fake it. So when someone hears, by the way, I describe what they're going through, but I'm describing it through their eyes at 80. But I'm talking about all the events that they're going through and the situations. And then there is a sense of clarity. Oh, by the way, that usually happens in the first 10 minutes, 12 minutes of the reading. If, especially if the person is going through, the crisis. And my readings are a monologue. Surprise, eh? So the readings I do are a monologue in that when I do my regular readings, two things I ask: how old are you right now? What month is your next birthday? That's it. And if I do ask a question when I'm doing a reading, it's usually for a yes or no answer, because I'm seeing something that I'm not quite understanding, and I might need a clarity, but I don't want a whole lot of information. I want them to tell me anything. And then I also ask people, even if you think I've made a mistake, don't interrupt me. Because what I'm constantly doing when I'm doing a reading is going over, checking what I've already said. And so if I've made a mistake and I didn't catch it right away, I will somewhere along the line in the reading. And when I was, as I was getting into my 30s, I was able at that time to do readings when what I was saying was not what I was thinking about. What I was saying had already been thought, and I was already thinking about something different. But what I was saying, I had already thought out, and it was just coming through my mouth. I was already focused on what I was going to be saying next. And as I got into about my 30s, I was able to focus on what I'm saying, what I said, what I'm about to say. So there were like three. And it was like three television screens on the wall, each one a different channel. And then as I got later into my later 30s, early 40s, there were four. And sometimes I'm seeing things. I've got the four channels going, and it's what I'm thinking about, what I've said, what I'm about to say, what I'm saying, and maybe what I'm going to be doing later on that day. And that happens also. And I'm flipping in and out of those thought patterns constantly. And I'm constantly going forward and backwards in people's lives. But I concentrate mainly on where you are now. The recent past, where you're going to be going through this next while, I look at like a 3-year period. But I also go all the way along, right to completion. And sometimes I see it.
Do you think that things can change because people decide to take a different path?
Absolutely. So there are very few things in life that are destined. Very, very few things are destined. There's an occasional one, but very few things are. Because you see, destiny cannot be changed. So if destiny could be seen, it could be changed. So destiny cannot be seen. And anytime we see something or are told something, we always have free choice and free will to do it or not do it. And we always have free choice and free will to do it any way we want. I really learned that concept on the job one day. I was 36, 37, 38 in that time period. And I was doing a reading for a young woman. It was just after the Olympics, the Winter Olympics in Calgary. And she came to me for her reading, and she was a producer for CTV at the Winter Olympics. That's why I remember her so clearly. And she came for the reading, and all my readings get recorded. Like, they're all recorded. And I've been recording readings since about 1973. So,
wow.
Well, if you don't want your reading recorded, I'll be glad to give you the name of somebody who will do a reading without recording. I just do it my way now.
Oh, I wasn't saying wow, like you won't not record it. I was saying wow, just because I've done video photography since I was 13, and I have a stack of SVHS and VHS. I could just imagine.
Well, I just keep them. I don't have like 50 years of recordings.
Oh, okay.
I was
about to say, holy nice.
No. I just wouldn't do a reading for somebody unless I recorded it and they got a copy. They got the reading. Started off with cassette. I figured out early that what people might remember in a reading isn't necessarily what I said, and things that I said they didn't fucking remember. So I wanted them to, right? Okay. So she comes to me for a reading. I was still on cassette. It was a great reading. Like, she had this great life ahead of her, and bam, and I was really into it. And she's all happy, and it's all, kumbaya and fuzzies. It's just wonderful. She leaves. The next night, on the CTV national news, I'm watching, and the anchor man is doing an obituary, and I look at the picture, and holy fuck, it's the young woman I had done a reading for the day before.
What the hell?
On her way home, we got streetcars, they call streetcars in Toronto, they're trolleys.
Yeah.
She was riding her bike, she got hit by one of those, bam, killed on the way home. So I'm saying to myself, hey, how could you have missed that? If you're so great, how did you miss that? And it ate me alive for a long time. And
you know what I imagine? I imagine that she was daydreaming kind of while she's writing. I think she was thinking, and it's not your fault, she's just thinking about her future, the prospect, and all this other stuff, and not paying attention. And then this happens.
Well, that certainly is academic, but to go along with that way of thinking, her getting hit, if it weren't destined, I'm too good to miss that. No, I've been drunk and I would have never missed something like that.
Right.
Absolutely, you just don't miss them, and I missed it because it wasn't there. So that meant that was when her number was up. Now, if I could have seen it, I would have told her, and then she would have had free choice and free will to do differently. So most things, you can do. It's not destined. It's how you deal with the opportunities in the moment. So that's how I deal with that. And so what I do when I give information, I give it open-ended, as in it appears as if this is what it looks like. This is how you'll be feeling, and this is what you'll be going through. Now, if that's not what you like, we'll understand that. But this is how you're gonna. This is the cycle you're in right now. You're gonna get the most focusing here, but you can do other things. And I'll often say it's not for me to tell you what's best for you, but this is where you make the most amount of money, or this is where you'll, or this is where you'll be, the happiest in your relationship or whatever. But you don't have to do that. You can do this. It's up to you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. In the end, it's up to you.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm sorry that happened, because I bet that is still with you today. As far as, I don't know, reading it like that. But like you said, you can't read destiny. Oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
Well, we discussed a little bit, instead of listening to the great music, we discussed some ideas, and you mentioned that you're really sensitive, and you can get really stressed around people or in groups. That's part of the job. That in order to be able to do that, it's because we're so aware, we're so open, and so sensitive, we get affected. And that's just comes with the territory.
Yeah, and I was talking about really not seeing myself doing radio because of my social anxiety, but there's been times when I'm doing my deep breathing as the music's playing and I'm about to do my intro. As soon as I'm 2 lines into it, it's gone. I feel better generally, so that's a good thing. Usually
people like us have trauma and nervous issues anyway. And it's most really good psychics, intuitives that do that work. Most have come from an intense background. And that's where we also develop those skills, because you see their survival skills, those instincts. So most psychics that I've ever met, I've got really heavy duty lives. It's part of the job. And I'm proud that it's part of the job, because going through what I went through, there was a lot, going through and completing, I helped others heal from those issues. And I helped me heal from those issues. One time, I was estranged from my family for many, 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 many years. And near the end of my mother's life, 10 years before, I did not have a real close relationship with her. Her Mother's Day present was I painted her entire apartment. That was her Mother's Day gift. And that was I paid for everything. Like I did that. And it was the first time that we had really been together for any length of time for a long time. And it took about a week and a half. And I would often be up the ladder and she would be talking with me and I with her. And something else. From the time I was 16 till now, I have been in some form of therapy, some type of inner growth. There's never been a period I haven't been doing that, right? It's me taking care of it. So I was up the ladder and I remember I was painting in the kitchen and I was edging. And my mother, I heard her speaking and she said, Robbie, they call me Robbie. Robbie, I've never asked you this, but was it better for you to be on the street than to be at home when you were so young? And I turned and looked down and I saw this little old lady who was not the woman that whipped me, who was not the woman that said those terrible, awful things to me. She was not that person. She was a little old lady. And I put the paintbrush down in the tray and I got down off the ladder because it was a serious moment. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, and I called her mother, and I said to her in a really soft voice, I said to her, Mother, I've spent my life in therapy coming to terms with that very issue you've asked me. Before I answer, I want you to know I am really okay with what's happened. And then I said, yes, it was safer for me to be on the street than at home. And I said it with that tenderness. And she groaned, and she looked down and she walked away. She never asked me or talked about it again.
Well, I'm glad you guys were able to talk about it, even though it didn't go any further than that. At least you both knew. And
I had spent as I said, I told her the complete truth, and I was okay. And looking back on that, if I could change it, I wouldn't. I'm not talking about at that time with my mother. I mean, the experience that I had, I wouldn't change it. Mm-hmm. Because it's made me the sensitive, compassionate man that I am.
Yeah.
It's given me the understanding of how someone feels when they've gone through something like that. And when I look at them after like 56 years, when I look at them and I tell them I understand, they know. Mm-hmm. So it's
I feel like no matter how good or bad a situation is that has happened in your life, if you learn from it, it's not a mistake, it's a lesson. And I feel like everything happens for a reason, no matter how good or bad it is. And it's hard to see it sometimes at the moment that it's happening, but you can look back later on and be like, oh, this is exactly why this happened, and this is, why you're here at this present situation. It's so intriguing.
Inevitably, when I go through some type of epiphany like that or experience like that, for the next several months, I have a whole bunch of people that are coming to me that are just in the process of going through that experience. So, it's often like I'm getting prepared or doing a course for the people that are coming to me. That often happens. Where are you, Tessa?
Well, I'm just thinking. So I don't know if you could smell the smoke. My wheels are grinding.
I'm seeing something going on. What's penny for your thoughts? All right, $10.
$10. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Here we go. No, just thinking about life experiences and different things that have happened. And, I feel so bad because I've been there, like, where you feel like the only way out is out. And after the third time, I was like, well, obviously I'm meant to be here for a reason, And I don't know, just, it is hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel sometimes, but don't give up. Keep going. You got this. I mean, life is a gift and it should be treated as such. And it does sometimes feel like hell on earth, but it's not. Like, we can get through this and we need to work together.
Speaking of working together, funny you should say that. I believe that there is a synchronicity to everything. I remember one time doing a reading for this woman. She was tough as hard tough broad, like really tough. She was a real estate agent. She was the type of person that if she liked you, she didn't like many, but if she liked you, but if you were one of those, you have a pit bull for a friend, and if she didn't like you, she would be the pit bull against you. So I'm doing this reading for her, and it was really hard connecting with her. And when I was doing my readings at that time, it was in a room it was all glass, like a solarium. And I had my tape recorder here. I sat here, and my client was sitting in front of me. And there was a window right beside the tape recorder. And as I was, because I don't use a medium, I don't put cards down, I just start off talking. And I just could not get that rhythm going with her. It was just, well, you know what I'm talking. Yeah. And now, at the same time, there was a fly on the window. And as I was struggling to tune into this woman, because she wanted a reading, the fly got louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. And it was really starting to piss me off. Not to mention, this woman was starting to piss me off because she was so difficult. I was honestly getting to the point where I was going to say, sorry, I'm sorry, ma'am, I just can't do a reading for you. Fly gets really loud, and that's it. And I stopped the tape. And I said to her, excuse me for a minute, got up, walked out of my room, came back with a glass and a piece of paper, and I walked over to the window, put the glass over the fly, slid the paper underneath the glass, walked over with the fly in the glass to the door, opened the door and let the fly out. Then I came back and sat down, turned on the cassette, and started doing her reading. After about 2 or 3 minutes, she said, I would have just killed it. And I looked at her and nodded and continued to speak. And at about 15 minutes into her reading, she said, I've never seen anybody do that before. And I nodded and smiled and continued doing her reading. And just near the end of her reading, she said, I think I could do that too. And then I completed her reading. Gave her cassette and thanked her very much. Now, if I would have hurt that fly, I never would have got to her. I never would have connected with her. She never would have allowed it. Now, I didn't do that for show. That wasn't me playing spiritual and stuff. I just do that anyway. So I was just doing what was natural, but it had this huge effect. And that fly, that woman, and I were in sync. That put that experience together. That's what I believe.
And it's funny, like you said, had you not done that, you wouldn't have been able to get through those walls Absolutely. She had up. So that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely. That's and it wasn't just me. It was in the synergy in everything works together. And I also believe that too.
Yeah, it's funny what you said about auras on, animals, plants, things like that. Like, back in the day, I never really noticed it. First time I ever encountered a spirit animal was a black cat in Mancos, Colorado that lived in my matchstick house. It was actually 3 cabins put together as one house, and I almost stepped on it by the furnace. Then saw it another time, never found it. And then recently was a deer running across the road. You see the first portion of the deer, the rest of it is a streak. But now today, I don't know if it's from, going through so many things in my last accident or whatnot, but seeing auras around trees and even plants, I think everything has a soul, everything has an energy. It's pretty amazing. And I don't know why I didn't pick up on it till I was like 24 years old, but I don't know. I think it's very interesting. And it makes so much sense. I don't know why I never thought of it before that moment.
Well, I wasn't doing those kinds of things then. I turned on some lights. I don't know if that was better or not. I didn't do those kinds of things that you're speaking of. Mostly what I was doing was readings, and there really wasn't that much opportunity to do very many other things. I was just more focused on that rather than, and although I'm visual in I see vibrant colors and things like that, I don't necessarily see when I'm doing readings. I just let what comes through, and sometimes I don't know what I'm going to say as well. I just let it happen.
So how do you do that? How do you pick up on the energy? Is there a way you can explain it for those of us that don't understand? Like, how exactly do you pick up on that energy or whatever you pick up on to be able to do a reading?
Okay. That's a great question. I used to teach a class on how to be psychic. And it was one day workshop. And it didn't matter whether a person understood or ever heard of psychic things. And anybody could come in. And I guaranteed to everybody that they will be doing psychic readings for strangers before the end of the day, or you get your money back. Absolutely. And I taught that group to, the biggest one was a little over 300 and all the way down to 10. And in that 20-year period I was doing it, I only gave back money twice. I was only asked for money back twice.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I just said, no, you're not getting it. I lied.
I'm pretty sure
No.
they learned the technique. They were able to do it, but they're tight asses. They just want their money back.
Well, the first person that asked for her money back, she just didn't like me personally. Okay, well, that's okay. Nobody, nobody's loved by everybody. She just didn't like me. She just found me crass, gross. She just found me, and then that's what was okay. So she didn't get much out of it. So
was her name Karen?
I was okay. No. You know what? Actually, it could have been. I can't remember. She had a European accent, nonetheless.
Oh, nice.
And the other person,
yeah, so crass and disgusting.
It was something like that. That was the way she looked at me. And then another time, I was doing it. I was out of town, and it was the first week of December. And when I got back home to Toronto, I got a phone call from this woman. It was about a week before Christmas. And I got a phone call from her, and she said, I've been thinking all this time I really just didn't get my right value out of this. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And I sent her money back right away. And what I really think happened is that she needed the money for Christmas. That was my thought.
Yeah.
Right? But I just did that. So I'm like that with my readings too. I guarantee, absolutely, if I do a reading for somebody, well, you pay me though. If I do a reading for somebody, I guarantee from the moment I do that reading and until the ending of my life or theirs, and hopefully theirs first, I guarantee that they will feel, that they will believe that they have received a good service from me. And if for any reason they don't believe that, I'll give you back your money just like that. And that's one of the reasons why I give everybody a tape as well. So I don't argue. I just give them back the money, just like that. Now, if you had a reading for me 20 years ago, you're not getting, 2021's bread back. You're going to get what you paid me 20 years ago, But that's the way it is.
Yeah, that'd be really odd if that happened.
That's right. Well, that's the way it is. And another thing is that I love doing my work so much that while I usually have, a time period that I would work at the end of the reading, I always say, look, if any time over the next year you've got some questions, please just contact me. It's, maybe you don't need to have another reading. So, give me a shout and, answer whatever, please.
Or keep in contact and let me know what's going on, what's happening.
Absolutely.
Give me some updates. I'd like to know.
And if you need any questions asked, ask. Mm-hmm. So I do that too. So anyway, so.
What's the next question? Well, I find it interesting that you've always just gone on your gift and your intuition and so on. Even though you've had to put these things before you when you're doing these readings, you're not really using them. You're using your gift. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I see a talent rather than gift.
Mm-hmm.
Being gifted implies, you got a present. For free, and that hasn't been the way it's been for me. I've worked my ass off my whole life. I've been dedicated, committed. It's what I've done. Now it's what I do. Now there were times where I did other jobs, but I never stopped doing readings. But I only did other jobs for a short amount of time. And what that also did is gave me experience in what it's like to be in the real world doing jobs. Mm-hmm. So I did a whole bunch of those, but I always did readings full time.
So a lot of people think that charging for, like, say for me, doing a paranormal investigation, doing a cleansing of a house or whatnot is wrong. And I feel like, I don't know,
wrong?
There's not a lot of help out there. So we volunteer our time. Like, we do this for free. If people want to give us tips or whatnot, that's cool. Doesn't happen a lot, way that we've been able to.
Excuse me. So, some people ask you or say to you that you shouldn't be charging because of you're using a gift that God gave you?
No, I've had somebody say that you should charge, because that's your time. You should be making money doing it. But I feel like there's not a lot of help out there. And I feel like if I am charging, I'm taking advantage. Like, this is something that I really love to do. And I know groups that do charge. We take donations and we do other things to raise money to do this. But for what you're doing, a lot of people think that if you're charging, you're taking advantage. And certain people like Sylvia Brown and other people like that have lost their gifts, but I think it's because they got too greedy. I think your time is worth money and that you should be compensated for it. I don't think it's taking advantage What are your thoughts on that? Like, have people said things like this to you? Like, you shouldn't be charging?
Oh, yeah. And they're usually the ones that want it from me for free.
Right.
Right? That's what it is. Okay. Using a God-given talent to make money. So that would mean, say, Luciano Pavarotti, using God's gift that God gave him to make money. I'm trying to remember the quarterback. I'm not really a big football fan, but the guy that recently won, his 5th Super Bowl. Okay, there's a guy with a God-given talent. And he's making his money with his God-given talent. How dare he? So everybody has a gift, a talent, something that they can do. We have free choice and free will to use it in any way that we can. Now, I put out energy, and it's unhealthy to have a relationship where energy's going out but not coming back. It's very much like exchanging energy is like breathing. So giving and receiving is like breathing. Exhaling is giving, and inhaling is receiving. If you exhale too much, you die.
Yeah.
and if you inhale too much, you die. So there's a balance here. So when we give out energy, that energy goes out, and if you're healthy, the energy comes back. And that way, your energy comes back, then you can do it another day for another person. If you continue putting that energy out without getting that energy back, you're going to look really old young. Because what you'll be doing is living off you're giving out your energy and not getting replenished. And that is very unhealthy. And I've also noticed that people that get something for free that's how much value they place on it.
Makes sense.
And most times when I've done something for pro bono, they don't really appreciate it. It's not. Now, what I do though is I believe that if they really want to get a reading from me, they really want it, they will be able to manifest it. They will. If they really want it, if it's so important, they'll be able to manifest it. The universe will give it to them, bring it to them. But they have to want it. So when somebody like that comes to me for a reading, boy, they're going to get like a real Jim Dandy, crackerjack reading. Because you know why? They put the energy out. Now, there have been times when somebody really struggled with the money. And I know that. Now, I never take the money. Well, now I do readings online. It's different. But when I work in person, I never take the money first. I always take it at the end, because that's always giving the person the opportunity to say, this reading was shit, man, so I'm not going to pay you. And it's not a wrestling match. And I say, okay. So, I just got caught off with what I was saying.
I get derailed a lot too. I'm like, wait a minute, what was I saying? Let's move on to something else.
Yeah, and so we're talking about that giving and receiving. So what I'll often do, if I sense, boy, this person is really scratched to get the money, I take the money from them and I hold it in my hand, and then I give it back.
Oh, wow.
Okay, or a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, the difference is that they've given me the energy, and then I say, okay, thank you, and give it back. And then I feel really good. And that shows that it's a value. And then they'll take your words or my words, and it will be, now they didn't get a half-price reading because they already paid for it.
Right.
Then they got a gift. Different. It means more.
So as far as doing readings, I know you've done online readings, radio readings. Is it difficult to read someone or pick up on somebody's energy through those different media as opposed to in person? How do you do that?
It's always online like this. For me, it's just the same as doing readings in person. It's just not as warm. Right. I don't see quite as much of the person. One of the things is, how you asking me about in the first segment about the first steps of being psychic. Okay, here's the first thing to be psychic. Become aware of what's obvious. When you become aware of what's obvious, look at the person, see them, see how they are, see how they sit, see how they move, see their face, see their hands. Not like in a in a staring way. Just become aware of what's obvious. You see, extrasensory perception. ESP. Well, what that is, extrasensory perception, ESP, what that is that our five senses, touch, taste, smell, see, hear, come together and form another sense, and in that awareness. So become aware of what's obvious about the person, and then more becomes obvious. And then when you become more aware of what's obvious, and then more becomes obvious again. And it becomes broader and broader and broader until what's obvious to you in that moment is not obvious to other people at all. Because we've just opened our mind. Now that's the beginning step. So become aware of what's obvious is the way we start. Or a good way to start. Other people can do it differently, but that's how you get people going. And in my work, because I record now and save them all, every month I take 2 or 3 readings that I've done, and I watch them and I listen to them, and I'm listening to the way I'm saying things. Mm-hmm. I'm listening to making sure I'm not falling into habits or patterns, making sure I'm not relying too much on just the easy hits, because there's always easy ones.
Yeah.
And the other one that I work on is making sure my filler is fresh. So sometimes when we're doing a session, and you know this too, sometimes when doing a reading, there's a kind of gap from one thought to another. And you can either, sit there and be silent, or you can keep your client's attention and you can put in some filler. So filler is real. It just keeps the energy going. I go to get psychic readings because I like to see what I'm not so interested in what they say. I'm more interested in how they're saying it, mm-hmm. how they do it, and I'm interested in their fillers. And the way you can tell somebody's using a filler is the way they say it has an empty ring to it, an emptiness to it. 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 1 is 3, 3 and 1 is, and it's got the boredom or the emptiness of somebody saying it 500 times.
Yeah.
Okay? And most people don't realize that they're doing that. So I listen to that, and I make sure that I don't fall into that pattern. And I make sure that I'm not falling into patterns of saying things. At this time in my life, more than 50 years and more than 100,000 psychic connections, how many bad relationships do you think I've seen?
Most?
Wow.
Most?
A lot. Right,
yeah,
right.
a lot.
Okay. So, and that could get boring. So one of the things that I do is I pay attention to the way I say things. And I make sure that I'm constantly changing the way I say the same thing. Because even though I might have said it 20,000 times, I'm connecting to that person that time for the first time, and I'm saying it to them then. And they bloody well deserve the freshness. And that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Best to be true and honest, and don't fake it till you make it, unless it's English or history class, right. Boys and girls. Be good to your peeps. On that note, we do have to go to our second break. We got Hosni Bronx with Free Child, King Cinnamon with Rosie, and Hosni Bronx again with Strong Life. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
Who decided this life?
it's funky on the beat.
Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, cinnamon, do it softly. I said you wine your body, eat the sweetie, sweetie. Make it rock my body, I am feeling horny. Make it touch my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. Muko mukeji, go bere muketa. Oya muko mukeji, oya bere muketa. Daddy mu ekon, omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy saucy, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy kosi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy trying pussy, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy and his baby, them dey for corner. Daddy begin the touch and the girl dey holla. Now daddy begin the open the shirt collar. Now something come out, daddy begin the suck am. Daddy mu ekon, omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy saucy, omo ni ẹjọ́. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, do it softly. I said you wine your body, eat the sweetie. Make it rock my body, I am feeling horny. Make it touch my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Amani, ejo, daddy saucy, amani, ejo, daddy kosi, amani, ejo, daddy kahin kosi, amani, ejo, daddy contact, amani, ejo, daddy comfort, daddy consist, amani, ejo, daddy can 8, daddy 120, amani, ejo, daddy 18, daddy 240, amani, ejo, daddy 36, daddy and the baby, them day for corner, begin the touch and the girl the holla, daddy begin the open the shirt collar, something come, daddy begin the sucker, daddy move echo, amani pe mukeji, daddy bere muketa, amani fún mi lẹ́yìn, daddy fisi, amani ẹjọ́, daddy saucy, amani ẹjọ́. All my men they wear out, all my guys they wear out. Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie.
Oh yeah, it's funky on the beat.
Babylon to make you suffer. Babylon to make you Babylon no have no heart. My people, you have to survive. Yeah, you must rebuild you and make your own way. You must not give up. The beginning of the revolt will start. We need to follow our true destiny. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know, whoa, why my people live this life. I don't know, whoa, why my people live this life. The obstacle we face, yeah, is Babylon. The world is a good place, yeah, for our freedom. You take everything, you don't breathe anything, yeah, yeah. It's young life, all anti-dread. We must believe in a magical, powerful force that unite us, and not just these people stay speechless again. We don't want to talk, no, it's time to fight, yeah. We start talking. Babylon make you suffer. 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 What the desire? It's young life. We are ready to fight.
Aw. Okay, going back in 10. That's awesome. That's good stuff. Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we are joined by Mr. Robert Lindsy Milne.
Yes.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us and sharing, your life story with us and different aspects of it. I've been meaning to ask, and I keep forgetting because we get on these different topics, but have you ever done missing persons cases?
I have. I don't like to do that. I don't like those things. And for a lot of reasons. And especially missing persons. I don't like that because most times when people like us get called in on the job, it's when they have no more leads. Mm-hmm. And inevitably what we're looking for is a dead body, not a live person. I don't have what it takes to tell a parent, a wife, a father, a husband, a child, that loved one's dead. I just can't do it. It would break me. Or worse, I would become cold and detached and distant. And that would be worse. So I don't like doing it. And when I do get involved, I get a guarantee from everybody that's involved that nobody knows that I'm doing it. Nobody. And to the point that nobody knows even a psychic was involved. I just don't want any connection. So there have been a few, and there have been a few where I've been forced. You know, that Witchcraft Act, right? So this was back in the days when I barnstormed. You know, I'd go to one station and do some shows and calls. Then I'd run back to the hotel, answer the phone, do about a bazillion readings, then go to the next town. So I was in a little town in Barrie, Ontario. It's 100 miles, less, it's 65, 75 miles north of Toronto. And it was a really cool place because I would drive up there in the morning, check into a motel, go to the radio station, do the show, run back to the motel, book about 10, 12 readings, do, 6 that evening, 6 the next day. I had only paid one night, one night's expenses in the hotel, and then I would drive home. That was really a score. So one time I was doing that show at this motel. It's about 7 at night, in the midst of a reading, and there's a knock at my door, and it's a couple of policemen interrupting my reading, You're
like, hey, trying to work here.
Well, that's right. Anyway, I was polite. I opened the door, and they started asking me questions, and they wanted me to help them. And I said, well, I'm doing readings here, and I don't do this kind of stuff. And they said, well, if you want to keep on doing readings, you have to help us.
What?
And I said, okay, let me finish. I got 2 more to do. Let me complete these 2 readings, and I'll help you if I can. I did the 2 readings. They came back and met me, and they told me the story. And here's the story: this really super upstanding woman, perfect mother, perfect wife. She's got a son. Takes her son to daycare at the YMCA, and then she goes to the mall to get her hair cut. No one ever sees her again. Now, her car's parked outside, right outside where the beauty salon is, but she never made it to the beauty salon. They never saw her. And it was so unlike her not to make the appointment because she was so consistent. The police searched for her for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, couldn't find her. And then they were running out of leads, and then they knocked on my door. So that night, I went down to the police station, and we looked at maps. And, I just put my hands over the maps, and, I pointed to an area. And I said, okay, there's going to be a train trestle that says 1910. And if that's where that train trestle is and it says 1910, you'll find her in that area. But you're not going to find her until late spring. And this would have been November. But we're not going to find her tonight. You're not going to find her until then. But it's around that train trestle, 1910. And, and they weren't taking me seriously. They were kind of being disrespectful. So now we're driving around at night looking for the train trestle. And we drive down the road, and all of a sudden we drive up to, and here's this abandoned train trestle. And lo and behold, 1910 was carved into it. Oh, but it was a desolate. And then they started taking me really serious. The next day, they had a bunch of guys come out and do an extensive search. Couldn't find her. And but then I was also able to do the rest of my readings, and I could go home. And I heard from them. Well, actually, I heard on the news about a year later. They had done a search, and they found her remains then. So that was one that I worked on, that I was famous for, or that I was forced into.
And I hate that you have to say that you were forced into it.
Well, I could have said no, but I wasn't going to be able to work or do readings, and I could have spent the night in the can. So I'll run through the fields for a while rather than sit in the can, right? So, yeah. Not that I've ever sat in the can. Maybe that's the reason.
I did that one time.
But really, no. So
I'm so glad you were able to direct them and
So-
they were able to go from that point and find her. Did they
So
find out
now-
what happened to her?
Oh, she was murdered.
That's sad.
It was. So then, I was in those days. There were 3 or 4 performing psychics in North America, and I was one of them. And I was auditioning for to appear on a radio show in Ottawa. And the host's name was Lowell Green. Ottawa is our capital, by the way, like Washington, although not nearly as vibrant, as big, and it's important, but it is to us. So now this was once again, this was way back in the 70s when psychics didn't appear on radio or things like that. So I appear on the Lowell Green show, blow the lines out, and by the way, got the job.
Nice.
So I come home, and a couple of days later, I get a call. Now Ottawa, the capital, has all the foreign embassies there, by the way. Okay. So when I get home, I get a call from the news director, and he says, I got a call from this guy. I won't use his name, and you'll see why. From this guy. And he's with the Russian embassy. And he is a journalist with TASS News Agency, and he wants to interview you. And then he laughed and said he's probably a spy too. And I said, I don't want anything to do with this. Absolutely nothing. Don't give him my number. Just I don't want to know. And I got frightened, so much so that I wasn't going to do the gig. I wasn't going to take it because I was just afraid.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with Russian agents. I wasn't crazy. So I'm back home, and I was involved in an organization called the New Age Center in Toronto, is where my office was. And all of a sudden, I started getting calls from some friends saying, Robert, this guy from Sergeant so-and-so from the RCMP security has called and been asking about you. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, right? And like several people, got called. And then one day, in that same time period, I get a call from that guy. And he calls and he says, hello, my name is Sergeant, and I'm with the security service with the RCMP. That would be the equivalent of the FBI and CIA altogether. It's not like that now, but it was then. Okay. So, and he said, myself and my partner would like to discuss a non-criminal matter with you. And I said, does that have anything to do with the guy in Ottawa? And he said, yes. And I said, I'm not interested. I don't want to be involved. I'm not in it. And he just said, would you please meet with us? We want to talk with you. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I have to wait for my friend because this other guy he was stationed in Ottawa. He flew to Toronto, and these two cops, they weren't cops. They wore suits and everything. Didn't even wear guns, because they were spies. And they talked with me in the office, and I did some of my psychic things, and they got kind of a little spooked with that. And then they told me the story. And here's the story. They said, this guy has diplomatic passport, even though he claims that he's just a journalist. He has spent most of his career in Washington. And all of a sudden, he gets transferred from Washington to Ottawa. This is not a promotion. This is not a promotion. So they think that he's been transferred there because the Brezhnev era was coming to an end and his people were falling out of power. and they think that this guy was ready to defect, which is one of the reasons why he reached out to me, because he knew how everything would fall into place. So I agreed to do that, meet with him, and they said, okay, call the radio station, set up a show, and then tell the program director you want to meet with the guy, and then have the guy give the guy your phone number and have him call you, and he did, and we set up a meeting to the time that when I was going to Ottawa, and that morning we went to a hotel that the RCMP picked, and it was a room that had 2 adjoining rooms, but the doors were locked, or supposed to be. And the room I was in was bugged, and on each side there were 3 or 4 other guys, like our guys, and then there was just me by myself. And this fellow shows up on time. Oh, the other thing is that they gave me his dossier, or they told me a whole bunch of things about this guy, about his family, and then they said, now somewhere when you're doing the reading, this is what you say. Sometimes people get into trouble, and sometimes people have friends they didn't think they had. You have them. It was something along those lines. It was that open-ended. So
yeah,
I'm doing,
it could mean a lot of things.
You sure? That's right. So as I'm doing his reading from the dossier that they gave me, I realized that the information they gave me was inaccurate. And I go, oh no. So I just forgot everything that they shared with me, and I just did a regular reading with them. Then I said the words they wanted me to say, and the guy got up, turned around and walked straight out of the room, never said a word to me, just got up and left. That was it. I was sitting down, the tape recorder was still going, and he just walked out the door. Never heard from that guy ever again. My guys come in, and I say, I blew it. And they said, no. What happened was, anytime those people get a proposition to defect or any implication, they get up and walk away. They just leave right then and there. They don't say anything. He said, what he did was quite normal. And I said, well, I hope it all works out. And he said to me, you might not ever know. And I said, okay. So anyway, that was that. Flew back, did the show, did a bunch of readings, fly back home to Toronto. And a week later, the guy from Toronto calls me and he says, the greatest amount of intelligence being passed in the world is in Niagara Falls at that border. And we have that border under surveillance. Would you consider coming down and going through the park and finding dead letterboxes? So I started to do that. Every month I went down to Niagara Falls with these guys, and first we would go through the maps of Niagara, the park, and I would point out where I thought dead letterboxes is where they drop intelligence, where it's passed. And I would find things that I would see on the map, and then we'd go out and look for them and find them, and some of them. And in those days, our security service was covert, as in we didn't interfere. We just watched what they were doing. We just wanted to know what they were doing, and I think we probably gave the information to you guys. Anyway, I'd been doing that for several months, and the guy that I was working with, he just said to me, you know that Ottawa thing? And I said, yeah. He said, well, no, he said it worked out well.
Wow.
And that was it. That's all I ever heard. Never heard another thing. So the implication was he made the switch.
Very
so
nice.
that was quite exciting.
For sure. So did you really enjoy doing stuff like that, or did it stress you out? Because
Oh,
especially,
I loved it. I loved it. And by the way, those guys had like expense accounts, and it was afterwards the party was the real fun part. Then they'd load me on the bus back to Toronto. I'd sleep all the way back, you know.
well, we are in the last 30 minutes of our show.
All right. So do you have callers lined up? Is that it? People just sitting there waiting, or how are we going to do this?
We've had a couple people ask about it. So if you're listening right now, if you'd like to call in for a reading, go ahead and call.
Before you dial that number, this is what I want you to do when you get on the air. I want you to tell me your name, just first name. Tell me where you're calling from. And I want you to think of a question that you would like to know. I may pick up on it right away. Just think of it. Don't ask it. Just let me go. We'll see where it goes from there.
Alrighty. So the number to call is 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596. And as Robert said, go ahead and leave your name and where you're calling from.
Yeah, just tell me your name, where you're calling from, and think of what you would like to know about from me. Put some energy into what you would like to know, and we'll go from there.
And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat room as well, and I will repeat it because some people say I say it too fast. 970-335-9596. And like Robert said earlier, he said out of all the time that he's been doing this throughout, what is it, the last 52 or
56 years.
56 years, this is the best time ever to get a reading from him. And I'm excited.
I would like to point out that the bonbons that I'm throwing out tonight is really nowhere indicative of the levels that I work at when I do readings. Okay, so it really isn't the same. They're just little bonbons. Although they can be quite tasteful.
Yeah, and like you were saying earlier, when we had discussed this, your readings go really deep and they get really personal. And generally, when we do readings, we'll leave it up to the person, but I want you to be comfortable with what you're doing, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. So,
well, I know how to say things. I know what I've done it before, you know.
Yeah.
Right? And except for Australia, I've been in just about every English-speaking country in the world, and appearing on radio and TV shows and doing readings. And one one time, are we just waiting for the calls to come in? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, we have one coming in right now. I'm trying to click on it. Arrow to join call. Let me silence this one. Sorry, you could hear my phone a-buzzing. There it goes. I think we got it.
So, hello, caller. So, is she? Oh, I lost you.
Did you? Am I back?
Yeah.
You got fuzzy for a second.
Now. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, you have your caller there now?
It was coming.
Say hello, or is she there? No, not.
Yes. Say your name and where you're from, and make sure you mute your speaker.
Hamlin, Alberta.
Awesome.
So, sorry. What's your first name?
Rosie.
Rosie, and where in Alberta are you?
Hamlin.
Hamlin. Where is Hamlin in Alberta?
You know, I would be south of Vilna, which is northeastern Alberta.
Okay. I can't recall ever being in Vilna, but
yeah, there's not much for me to be in Vilna.
But I had been in Edson a couple of times, mostly passing through.
Yeah.
So pardon?
it's a pretty cool area.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm really glad that you got on tonight, and it's great that you're a fellow Canadian to get me going. Of all the millions of people that call through, you're the one. So some interesting things going to be going on with you. And now, are you at home now?
Yes.
And do you live in like your own building as opposed to like just a room? The reason that I'm asking you that question is that the door that you would get into your place, I'm hearing it squeak and the lock is loose or something. So, Vilma, you need to get that fixed, and you need to get fixed fairly quickly. So that's in the front. Pardon?
Yeah, that is. I actually this evening or earlier I fixed the latch.
Oh, did you?
And this evening I fixed the squeak.
Okay, good. Thank you, my dear.
Yeah, that was.
Thank you. Now the other thing. Now I'm just getting warming up, sweetie. Now the other thing that I'm a little concerned about are some tendons or ligaments that will be in your shoulder and along the trapezius and up your neck, and even down the right side of your back as well. Okay, it appears to be more muscle. Sorry, yes, it appears to be more muscle than actual bones. So that's where knots would be. And who is the person that's struggling, that worried about a sudden loss of hearing or have been losing their hearing? Who is that person around you that's going through that, Vilma? Who is that? Are you there?
Just myself, I believe.
Okay, well, that's the closest one. All right. What would you like me to talk about tonight?
I was going to question about the bear spirit, spirit being Neo or Kahehi, and possibly Susie. I don't know, whoever might come up to you.
That's not the area that I work in.
Okay.
But I'd sure be glad to deal with what you know, like the cost of peanut butter today.
Okay. So,
come on, sweetie. What are you doing? You know, you're with your house. What do you want to know in your life that's tangible? Because that's where I work. Come on, sweetie.
Okay, money-wise.
Do you have an idea what the question is?
If I'm going to be able to get another truck.
Oh, it's blue. It has like a relatively low kilometers. And you may have seen it as well, and that can even happen in May.
In May. Oh, goodness.
Or by May. Okay. So it has been absolute delight to talk to you, my fellow Canadian. You, my dear, got me all warmed up, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Even the first comment just blew me away. Like, if you had any idea how much my door was squeaking and banging. Oh.
Well, I did. You. Okay. Thank you, sweetie.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dee. Nighty-night. Love you.
Right. I didn't hear her name clearly. Oh, well. I'm so sorry,
yeah,
Rosie.
It was Rosie.
Oh,
there you go. That was fun. I do know how to do this.
Right? You are practiced. So, again, the number is 970-335-9596. Call now or rest in pieces forever. No, I would highly recommend it, and I'm just like, man, I want to get my own reading, but I might wait till after the show, if that's possible.
While we're doing this, let me tell you about an experience I had in South Africa. I had a contract where I was touring. I had a tour of South Africa with South African Broadcasting, and it was a 3-year contract. I went back every year. So the first year, I was going from one city to the next, and I have a very good friend that lives in Durban, and I flew to Durban just to hang out there because apartheid had just ended, and I wanted to get in line with what was going on in the country. And he owned a gas station, and in those days, only the black people worked at gas stations pumping gas. So I started pumping gas at the gas station with the workers, and that's a whole story in itself. So I did that for about 2 weeks, pumping gas, and then I was appearing on a show called East Coast Radio in Durban, and it was on a Friday night. And I said to my friend Clive, I said, Clive, if we can, promote your business, but we can do something really nice. How about if people would come down to Quality Street Motors, and if they buy a certain amount of gas for an equal amount of money, I'll answer 3 questions. And all of the money for questions is donated to charity, because I just wanted to connect with the people. So anyway, we promoted that like crazy on the show. I was on for 2 hours. We promoted it like crazy. It seemed like nobody had ever done that before. The next morning, we get down to Quality Street Motors, and there is a lineup around the block and down the street. It was unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Now, I told all the people there that were working there, I said, now you guys get to ask 3 questions as well. And there's no charge for that. So people were coming in more and more and more and more. And partway through that day, this rich guy drives up in a brand new, shiny Rolls Royce in South Africa. Now, in South Africa, when you import a car, there's a 100% duty on it. So if your car is $100,000, there's a $100,000 duty.
Holy shnikes! But
wait, at the time, the South African rand, one pound sterling was 21 rand, and this guy's driving a brand new Rolls Royce. He pulls up, gets his gas, pays his $50. He bought 50 rands worth of gas and pays his 50 rand, and he comes in to see me. And there's 3 questions. First question is, he's in negotiation with the union, and he wants to know if he's going to be able to get a good deal beat the union. That was the first question. Second question. Second question is, his daughter is about to get married, and he wants to make sure that the reception, because he's paying big for the wedding, goes off well. And the third question is, he's got an ulcer and pains in his stomach, and he wants to know how it's going to be. So I do all that stuff for him. He walks out the door, and the next person in is one of the guys that work at the gas station. Guy's name's Joe. Joe is a Zulu, and he spent most of his life in the jungle. He could barely speak English. He really was illiterate. He was a really beautiful guy, but he was quite simplistic. But Joe came in to get his reading. First question: was his job secure? And would they get a fair union contract? First question. Second question: his daughter's pregnant, and he wanted to know, is the guy going to marry her? Third question: he's got an evil spirit in the stomach, and he wants to know if I can take it away. The rich guy was worried about union negotiations, his daughter's wedding,
Hello?
and his upset stomach. So the guy from the jungle and the rich man, same 3 questions. And what that said to me is, we're all the same. It was mind-boggling to see that, like, wow, in real life, like right in front of me. It was one of the most profound experiences of my life.
I love when stuff like that happens.
Yeah. So I think there's somebody online that was listening to us, or maybe saying, "Wish you'd shut up and talk to
No,
me."
we finally got her in. For some reason, we were having issues, but area code 479, please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Yes, I am Kathy Weaver, and I'm calling from Coxville, Arkansas.
Wow, thank you. Whereabouts now? Now, did you say? Would you say the name of your town again? Clarksville.
Coxville.
Clarksville.
Okay.
Yes.
And whereabouts is that?
CASVILLE. It is in between Paris and Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Thank you. What a delight to hear from you tonight. Right near where you're living, there's going to be some construction going on, or there's going to be some reconstruction. And right near where you're living is a plant or a building that's going to be bringing jobs, work into that area, that town. The next thing that they should be talking about it now. And it's got something to do with trucks coming in as well. So, anyway.
Rock quarry by my house, so it might be it.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
There is a rock quarry.
Yes.
That used to be active when I first bought the place, but it's been like dead for a long time now. And like here lately, I've been seeing trucks come back and forth, like it's active again.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is that being active now. I don't have a concept in my mind as to where I was looking. What I saw was something being started, rebuilding or fixing, and a lot of trucks coming in. So I didn't have a reference point or a context. I thought it was the building of a factory where people would work. Well, it'd be people working there. But here's the other thing, my dear. If you're,
but it was spot on. It's actually because people are working there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Now, what else is pretty good is that when I see, I can't see the numbers, but I get the feeling. When I see the number, when I see the energy that's in your bank account come like mid-June, I get a smile on my face, and so will you. So for some reason, there's more money coming to you. It appears as if it's a bonus. It could be from the government. It could be something that comes to you that tops up your bank account. The next thing has got something to do with painting. And you might find yourself painting around your place or doing that kind of renovation. Anyway, my dear, what would you like to know about? Hello?
I would like to know about my any genetic. I want to know, do you see any extraterrestrial things when you do my reading? Do you see any ETs in my future?
So, like I'm a meat and potatoes kind of psychic, like you got your rent paid, getting a new job, your kids are healthy, you're growing. I haven't had a lot of experience with that. However, do you ever get aches, hurts, or pains in right at the base of your skull at the back? It even could be near where your skeleton just comes up and clicks onto your head. Do you ever get any pains or aches or weird feelings there?
Sometimes.
Because that's where there was some type of implant or some type of experiment done. So when you were about 9.5, 10, you were looked at, had that experience. That's why you're talking about it now.
Yes, kind of.
Hello? Pardon?
It's kind of why I was talking about it now. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So what's important is that you're safe. So they're not going to
Yes,
come back
I'm
and
not-
get you. Okay.
Anyway, yes. I'm safe. I'm completely safe, I promise.
Okay.
I'm completely safe.
Now, what else would you like to know?
Just anything else that you see about my future.
I've given it all. You have to put the energy back in now.
Okay.
Yeah,
You have to
specific
put the
question.
energy in. Or semi.
Or semi-specific.
Okay. Well, thank you much. I'm glad I was able to talk to you about the planet or the being built, and about the thing that's behind your ear. Letting you know that you're safe and you will be revisited. And thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Arkansas.
After party later. All right.
All right, we'll see you in the after party, sister. Night, love and light.
So, is there another person, or are we just going to ad-lib some more?
Yes, we shall ad-lib some more. No, I find it interesting how you pick up right away. And Rosie was saying, that was crazy. Too bad I was kind of blank for a main question, as I wasn't clear of what kind of topic. But there is a blue truck I have been looking at. Crazy. And he was right on about the right side muscles are a real mess, and the ear is closing. So how so perfectly right on Robert is. And she said that was amazing. You really picked up on everything. And like she said, the first sentence where you're talking about Thor, luckily she just now repaired that. So
yeah. I worked that quickly, and yes, as you can see, I do good psychic stuff, and it happens really quickly. And when I hit, it's not like vague. It's very clear. When I do a psychic reading for somebody, that skill is focused on that person's life, their inner self, how they see things, what's going on, and how they can grow. So what I'm doing as a parlor trick is actually I take that skill and then focus into their life and how they're going. Now, I happen to be really interested. Well, I've been in therapy for 1,000 years, so I happen to be. Yeah, I know. It's a gift to me. So I happen to be into behavior, growth, making things different, evolving, stuff like that. That is where I really get turned on, and that's how often my readings come about. And when I talk to somebody about an emotional issue or a problem, or someone that has panic attacks or has PTSD or stuff, when I tell them about something, they know the way I've said it to them that I didn't learn it in a book. I learned it in real life. Mm-hmm. And then they know that I know. Got somebody that's going to find out what I know or want to? Not yet.
I want to know. Like, I've learned a lot. And a lot of people, think if they haven't seen me and they hear what I have to say, that I'm older than I really am. But, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, do you ever feel like you're an old soul, like you've been through this process before and you know where you're going, you just don't know what the destination is? Or do you? Like, do you know when you're going to die and what's going to happen in the end?
No, I don't. I don't know when I'm going to die. Where I am in my life at this time, actually, I've been in this space for close to 20 years. If this were the last moment of my life, I would go out and say, wow, what a ride this one has been. Right? Okay, that's how I'm going to see it. That's how I see it. I don't want it, right now. But if that's where it's at, well, I'm going to my maker or wherever it is, and I'm pretty sure up. I don't think the other way. I think that that's how I'm going to feel. Like, wow, what a great life. And pretty much anywhere after turning 50, I was in that space.
And we are almost at the end of our time. I'm getting messages on the side. I know. Everybody's like, 3 hours, really? That's a long time. And for me, it just never seems like enough time. But I did put it in the chat for people that had been asking where to find you and things you're doing. RobertLindsayMilne.com, correct?
That's exactly it. And I have a website there. Please feel free to contact me. It would be delightful. And you can find me on Facebook and soon Instagram. I'm learning that one now, and we're going to expand more and more. When I started doing readings, we didn't have computers.
I know.
Although I got my first computer in 1988, and it was a Mac SE.
Holy shnikes.
Had a 20 megabyte hard drive. Ooh.
And a big ass monitor. Like, you have to hug that sucker to haul it around.
Well, actually, it was just a little wee one.
Oh, really?
Smaller than a big iPad. Oh yeah, it was really small. It was all in one though. Yeah. Well, remember 1988. I used that computer from 1988, and it retired in February 2000.
Holy shnikes.
Yeah. So.
Oh, it's been awesome having you, and holy shnikes.
Thank you.
I'm totally thinking about upgrading to Anchorman, because having that extra 2 hours, if we wanted to, we could. But if you guys do want to join us, we do have an after party. You could look me up at Tessa.N.Thomas30 Gmail. TessaTNT. You can also call, if you don't have Skype, 970-335-9596. Feel free to come out and hang out. I know with this pandemic, whatever you want to call it, it's been hard to hang out and socialize, and we just like to sit around and discuss things. So feel free to do that. Definitely look up our friend Robert at RobertLindsayMilne.com. He's also featured and quoted 24 times in the book, The Perfect Predator. If you're interested in finding that, you can find it on Amazon.com. Thank you so much again, Robert, for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, and thank you very much.
Yeah, you've blown everyone away, and I'm very surprised at why our lines aren't just backed up. I don't know if there's something going on like foosball or some shenanigans out there, but it's pretty intriguing to me.
Also, if you have the large audience, maybe what happened is everybody converging in on one number could be causing that too.
Right? And it was weird. I had this thing going on my computer where it's page after page after page of, I don't know what the hell that was.
That's right. And then nothing.
Yeah, nothing. It's blank. Paratechnical issues.
Yes.
I think high energies. Yeah, high energies cause
There could have just been so many people calling in. That happens.
Yeah.
No, in the early parts of my career, when I started touring, when people didn't do live shows or call-in shows, and they didn't have computers that ran the telephones, on many different occasions, I blew the city's telephone exchange, blew it up, like you could not phone. In Edmonton, Alberta, I'd only been on for like 15 minutes, and the general manager came running in and saying, "This is an emergency. Hang up your phone now. The entire telephone system of Edmonton has shut down." You couldn't get to hospitals, the police department, ambulances, and they had to stop the show because blew the telephone lines out. Did that